Hello, friends. Good afternoon. Welcome once again to Look and Live. You here with Pastor James Devallon. Had some noise down here in this room. How you guys doing today? I'm joined with Mr. Darth Vader.
Hello.
Hello. So, all right, we have the stream element box running, as always. I had connected to that, and it kind of keeps count of what's happening in the chat room and so on. It's pretty nice. But nevertheless, guys, we have a good one for you today. I'm not sure who is watching right now. We only have one person watching at this moment. So let me tell you what's going on here today on Look and Live. If you are here, come in by saying hello, say hi, introduce yourself, let us know where you're watching from. So let's get to this thing. So what do we have going on today? Let me share my screen for you here. There we go. Hello, Megan is here watching. Great. Thanks for joining us. We're gonna talk about again, Kanye West is back on the channel. There is a lawsuit that Kanye West is now facing for $250 million lawsuit against Ye. Supposedly he said something he wasn't supposed to say. Thomas Lane, body cam video of George Floyd. We're gonna examine that shortly. Darth Vader has shown me something I did not see before. And also, we have Awaken with JP. Yeah, 2 days kids in 40 years. In 40 years, 2 days kids. What is that going to be like? Last but not least, with the Uncle Tom movie, we have a number of parts we're going to run through. We are going to review that together. And again, I want to say, this is not the entire movie. We want you to go and watch it. It is worth every dime. I want to encourage you to make that purchase. You're not going to regret it. The historical account and the factors that are mentioned in the movie is very enlightening. So we leave it as that. So, Mr. Darth Vader, are you ready for this?
I am. I've been looking forward to this.
We gotta be ready, man.
Oh.
Brace yourself. We're gonna have a good one today. We're not gonna waste your time because we want to make sure we do what we need to do just in time so we can move on. So let's talk about Ye. Ye or Ye, Kanye West.
Yay.
Yeezy.
It's Yay.
Yay. Okay. So the family of George Floyd plans to file a $200 million lawsuit against Ye. Why exactly is this happening? The family of George Floyd announced Tuesday that they will file a $250 million lawsuit against Ye, the rapper formerly known as Kanye West. Following the comments he made about Floyd's death on a podcast Drank Champs. What was that comment? Let's find out. So it's not here in the article. I'm still looking. There it goes. Okay. $250 million damage, defamation, infliction of emotional stress. Wow. So the words of Kanye West, according to the family, has inflicted that much pain. According to the family, harassment, misappropriation. This is a big lawsuit. Big lawsuit. So free speech rights do not include harassment, lies, and misrepresentation in the misappropriation of George Floyd's legacy. Some words have consequences, and Mr. West will be made to understand that, said Harper William, another Washington attorney. So I'm going to find the podcast, but in the meantime, I want to ask the question. Doesn't this remind you of what recently has happened to, what is the guy name?
Alex Jones.
Alex Jones, InfoWars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How does this relate? What do you think?
It's the same thing. They're trying to buy his silence. They're trying to quiet him up and keep him quiet about the truth. They want to silence the truth about what actually happened.
So
because they want to keep him propped up as a martyr for everyone to look at and say, oh, he was such a wonderful person, when in reality, that's not exactly what happened.
there was more to the story, of course. And I know families will argue otherwise. So let me find the thing here. But one thing we have to keep in mind, though, is that George Floyd has been deified. Okay, let's just call it that way. George Floyd is literally considered a god in the Black community. So it's almost like every other god you're dealing with in the world, even though you might have an issue with them. I have an issue with like Islam. I know that might sound like a poor analogy. I have an issue with Buddhism, the practice, a lot of idolatry and stuff. But when you go after their gods, they get upset. People don't love when their gods are being challenged, and a lot of Black people will say that's not true. But I'm being honest with you. George Floyd is looked upon as a god, and what has happened was horrible. I'm not justifying it. The way he died was sad, and there are factors to consider. Even though we don't want to talk about that, we will talk about that today, despite what the opposition say. But the thing is, when a person is that elevated, is that high on the spectrum, any things that he said could be taken to that level of retaliation, if I may say, for the lack of word. So let me get my screen. Let me turn it on for you. I found the video. Okay. So this is the official video of Kanye. So this, I'm guessing, comes as a result of Kanye West maybe watching that movie, The Greatest Lie Ever Sold. So let's listen to what he says.
I watched the George Floyd documentary that Candace Owens put up. One of the things that his two roommates said was, they want a tall guy like me.
Kanye West has gone overboard, and this time, his victims are suing him. The rapper has said a lot of unsolicited ideas to the public, but this one is one for the books. He claimed that George Floyd died because of an overdose, and now the family of George will sue Kanye for these nonsense claims. Where did he even get those ideas? Because they're totally ridiculous. We all know who George Floyd is. He's a victim of police brutality, and to some, he's a martyr. He passed away years back in the hands of an officer during an arrest. His death has sparked so many movements, and it's still being defended until this day. The story has come into light again because of Kanye. During one podcast, the rapper couldn't contain himself and said a lot of weird thoughts. Aside from him claiming that Kris Jenner and Drake dated, he also said that George Floyd passed not because of police brutality, but because of an overdose. His bizarre behavior led human rights activists to help the Floyd family. The potential lawsuit was announced recently in a tweet by civil rights activist and attorney Lee Merritt, who said Kanye's comments about Floyd's cause of death undermined his family. They think that even though it is impossible to defame the dead, the Floyd family are still considering action against West over the slur against George. The rapper also added that he watched the documentary his partner in White Lives Matter.
All right, go ahead, operator. I'm sorry, I wasn't watching my screen. Go ahead.
So the problem with that is what this video is putting out is actually misinformation.
Yeah, he's speaking in defense, but I wasn't gonna consider all that. But go ahead.
The autopsy says something completely different. If you actually look at the autopsy, it says there was no physical injuries to the body, neck, or spine.
We did watch the movie on Daily Wire, which I can pull up right now, where Kanye West got that information from. Kanye West didn't make that up. He got it from watching the movie itself, which was another factor that needs to be considered. But again, you gotta go with the point that I said. George Floyd is considered a god. No other view or perspective can be included right now. It's like that's literally the way it is settled. So I guess the fact Kanye West, who has the audacity to speak his mind, often as he does, he's always going to have this level of retaliation, you know. And again,
Mhm.
knowing his status and how famous he is, certainly I saw that one coming. You know, it wasn't anything shock. And that's what I'm telling you. Like George Floyd literally is considered a god in the black community because of his death. So here is the part. There is the part of the video, and I did do a reaction to this, and I think it's worth listening again so you understand where Kanye West got his mindset from. He didn't make it up. But when you watch the movie, when you watch The Greatest Lie Ever Sold, I can understand what Kanye West was talking about. For as hard as it is for people to accept in the family, and I do understand, you know, there's a daughter involved, and I sympathize with that. There's children involved. There was an ex, and there was another girlfriend, and there were two other kids supposed to be that weren't his. And we can go with all these things, but again, evidence is evidence. Facts are facts, you know, and emotions and feelings. We have to consider that. We have to put that secondary. We have to look at all the major factors, and we're gonna look at a short video as well that you're gonna examine for us, Mr. Darth Vader, that sheds a lot of light on this situation. So let's look at this again. This is where Kanye West got his thought from. So if you understand what's happening in this, then you can better understand why Kanye West felt the way he did. Now watch this. Let's go back just a little bit more because he goes very, very
Yeah.
deep. He goes very, very deep. It's worth watching his part because I think that's one of the best part of the entire movie.
Exactly what he said.
I'm just claustrophobic. That's it.
If I was an officer, I'd be saying, wait a minute, you showed up in a car. You wouldn't get in a car if you thought you were claustrophobic. The officers placed him in a position that's referred to as the maximum restraint position. In other words, he's prone, stomach down, on the ground.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, good morning. We plan to prove to you, beyond a reasonable doubt, that Mr. Chauvin was anything other than innocent. On May 25th of 2020, Mr. Derek Chauvin used excessive and unreasonable force upon the body of Mr. George Floyd until the very breath, no, ladies and gentlemen, until the very life were squeezed out of him.
You would agree, Chief, that from the perspective of Miss Frazier's camera, it appears that Officer Chauvin's knee is on the neck of Mr. Floyd.
Yes.
Would you agree that from the perspective of Officer King's body camera, it appears that Officer Chauvin's knee was more on Mr. Floyd's shoulder blade?
Yes.
They had to have the jury believe that it was a neck restraint, it was the knee on the neck, it was asphyxiation that killed George Floyd. However, there was a ton of evidence that George Floyd consumed a toxic, lethal cocktail of fentanyl and methamphetamine.
Did it appear that Mr. Floyd said, "I ate too many drugs"?
Yes, it did.
Let's put it in perspective. 3 grains of fentanyl on the head of a lead pencil, enough to kill you, enough to kill me. And so they had to continuously inculcate the public to believe that Derek Chauvin intentionally, premeditatedly murdered George Floyd, and drugs had absolutely nothing to do with it. As Lindsay and the toxicologist presented that awful testimony.
Do you recall describing the level of fentanyl as a fatal level of fentanyl?
I recall describing it in other circumstances. It would be a fatal level, yes, in other circumstances. Had Mr. Floyd been home alone in his locked residence with no evidence of trauma, and the only autopsy finding was that fentanyl level, then yes, I would certify his death as due to fentanyl toxicity.
can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Here, come on out.
The autopsy is generally broken down by, number one, how the body is presented, and what his height and weight is, and then it goes through the neurological system, exterior trauma, interior trauma, but I go right to the cardiovascular system. And there I look at the heart weight. How much does the heart weigh? And then I take a look for key words. I compare the heart weight to the height and weight of the individual, to what the toxicology report says, and I look for certain words or evidence of something called cardiomegaly. Cardiomegaly means an enlarged heart. And if a person has cardiomegaly, their chances of sudden cardiac arrest rise by 150 times, not 150%, 150 times. That is significant. And then we have the whole issue of the police encounter and the basal metabolic rate rising. Think about him being agitated, chaotic, excited, and his heart is pumping, pumping, pumping. There is zero empirical forensic evidence, medical evidence of any biological mechanism, physiological mechanism that would have interfered with George Floyd's ability to get sufficient oxygenated blood up into the brain. There's zero evidence of that.
There was another.
Yeah. So this is where Kanye West was coming from. That was the basis of his discussion.
And you could see right there, right at the end, where it says no neck or laryngeal injuries noted of any kind.
Nothing. So there was nothing.
That was in the official autopsy report. So nothing the Officer Chauvin did had any effect on George Floyd's death. None whatsoever.
None. And may I say something to anybody who's watching who still believes, right? Who still believes George Floyd had passed away due to police brutality and what Officer Chauvin did to him. Okay, if you still believe that, we're not against you, we're not fighting with you. All we're simply asking is take a deeper look at the situation and get the movie The Greatest Lie Ever Sold and listen to the other side as well. Because what that does for you, at least what he did for me, it has helped me to balance my perspective. For me, I was more like in a gray zone. I was like, I don't know. I'm not holding no Black Lives Matter signs, and I'm not gonna run for the officer. I'm not gonna run against officer. I'm gonna go for George Floyd or against them. I just said I'm just gonna stay my ground and wait until I get further light and knowledge on this stuff. So I've seen all the other side of the story, how the picture was painted with the officer being called racist. I've seen all of that. I watched the news and I heard it, and I've seen the riots that followed. But when you watch The Greatest Lie Ever Sold by Candace Owen, when you watch that and you balance that with what the general perspective and narrative is, it is humanly impossible not to properly balance your perspective on this thing. It is humanly impossible. It will be disingenuous for me to say I don't see where Kanye is coming from. I understand where he's coming from. All you have to do is to watch the movie. You will come to a different conclusion as well, because it's not because somebody's been watching you. It's just because the evidence is so strong.
The other thing to add here is you got to look past your own emotions and prejudice here to actually be able to open your mind enough to see the truth that is being presented to you.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, then you're going to be closed-minded and you're not going to be able to take that information in and process it properly.
That's crazy. So, wait a minute. So I'm reading your comment here, Megan. Oh, heartbroken van, you changed your name. So, man in California died less 2 months before George Floyd named Edward Bronstein or Bronstein. Similar manner, really interesting. Didn't seem to make the news. I wonder if he was a white man, as I'm sure he probably was. Okay, how about we move on now with the clip? I'm going to let you explain that one, Mr. Darth Vader, because you can highlight much more what's happening here. So let me make sure this is full screen, unmuted. Mute myself.
So what this is the body cam footage of the police officer who first came in contact with George Floyd.
Mm-hmm. You couldn't watch this on YouTube without signing on two different, you have to say, I understand. Yes, I agree. You can't just watch this video unless you you agree to whatever content is in there. When YouTube does that, that means the content is something you're not supposed to be. The average person can't just watch that. At least kids are not supposed to be watching this. So, okay, let's watch the video, and then I'll pause and let me know where you want us to comment and so on.
Yeah, we're not going to watch the whole thing.
Yeah, just 1 minute of that.
About 2 minutes.
Gentlemen. Sir. The driver on there?
Blue Benz.
Which one?
Okay.
Which one?
Yep. Just head back in. They're moving around a lot. Let me see your hands.
Damn, man.
Stay in the car. Let me see your other hand.
I'm sorry.
Let me see your other hand.
Please, Miss Officer.
Both hands.
Do nothing.
Put your fucking hands up right now. Let me see your other hand.
All right. What I do though? What do we do?
Put your hand up there. Put your fucking hand.
Okay, Darth Vader, you said an hour and 1 minute and 51 seconds. Hold on 1 second.
Okay, you're going to have to go frame by frame.
All right. So
it's just the quickest glimpse.
All right, let's look at that again. All right, we're supposed to be right there. Yeah, it's right around here. Are we seeing it?
Right there. Can you see that? When he's got his mouth open?
Yeah.
That white tab on his tongue? If you go back, you can use the comma key to go back frame by frame, and the period button to go forward frame by frame.
Put your fucking hand up there. Jesus Christ. Keep your fucking hands on the wheel. Keep your fucking hands on the wheel.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, Mr. Officer.
Who else is in the car?
I got shot. This is my
Put
friend.
your foot back in.
Sorry, Mr. Officer. I'm so sorry. God dang, man.
Yeah, I'm not able to catch it fully, but I saw quickly how it had right here. If you watching his mouth, there is something in his mouth here. But some people will argue,
And
how could you?
right there when he puts his head on the steering wheel,
Mm-hmm.
that's him swallowing it.
What we do?
Put your hand up there.
Right there. It's right in between here. You sent me another picture that is worth taking a look at.
Yeah.
That means
It shows it better.
Yeah, there it is. Right there. So somebody might say, "Oh, that's edited." That's it's kind of hard to deny this. You know, there's so much people do with pictures nowadays. I can see how they're gonna argue some of this. They will say that's nonsense. But it did appear in the video he had something in his mouth. It did appear in the video that he had something in his mouth.
And even in the video and the body cam footage, you heard in court that it sounded like he said, I took too many drugs.
He did say that. Yeah, he did say that. He did say that in the video. So that confirms what's happening here in this encounter with the officers. Man, it's just a sad situation altogether. To be honest, it's just sad.
So quite frankly, the police had nothing to do with his death.
That's what this will mean. If he had this much drug in his system, fentanyl
and meth.
Oh gosh, but you know, when you read into fentanyl, you don't need a whole lot to do damage. I mean, just not even a little, half of a rice, I would say.
3 grains. 3
2
grains.
of,
and we're talking about a grain that's the size of sand.
Man, that's a tough one.
That's how much fentanyl it'd take. 3 grains would kill 2 people.
Oh gosh, where do we go from here? You know, each person have to come to their conclusion when it comes to this. You know, we've come to our own. I've come to my own. Watching the movie and watching the other side of the story and getting a perspective of Black Lives Matter and what they've done, their history and so on, I came to my own conclusion. You know, George Floyd was really a sad one. Drugs were a major factor. And I know he has sons and daughter. He has a daughter. Well, he has one daughter who has an issue with what Kanye West said. And I would say we have to sympathize with the daughter. But Daddy had
I can understand that.
Yeah,
but
Daddy had a drug addiction, and it was very obvious. He had
to a certain degree, she's also got to understand that the truth is the truth.
Yeah, for as hard as it is, you know.
And she needs to come to terms with that.
Yeah, eventually.
And hiding away from it and trying to deny it is not going to help her in the long term.
It's not. I agree. So let's move on now to part 2 of our video. We'll let you guys come to your own conclusion when it comes to this. We've had our own. But I'll tell you what. Quickly. One thing that is beautiful about truth, no matter how uncomfortable it is, Jesus says,
no matter how ugly it is.
Yeah. Well, no matter how ugly it is. Jesus says, it does one thing for you. It sets you free. It sets you free. It sets you free. There's some things you hear, there's some news you find out about. It hurts. It is painful. It is hard to accept, but it sets you free. A couple of years ago, I had found out that I had a hole in my heart. I was born with a condition that has gotten worse over time. It's called Nepsi anomaly. It's really like a heart murmur. But what that does is one side of my heart was working over time for the other side that was weak. And there was a hole, a leaky heart. That's what I had. Born and raised with it. 1 out of 10,000 people has that issue. I happen to be one of the lucky ones. So I remember when I went to the doctor and they told me that truth. for as hard as it was, I knew I was not doing good. I knew that I couldn't lift too many heavy. Anything over 40 pounds was difficult. I was getting tired when I was playing basketball, and I was getting tired too quickly. My heart would beat for like 48 hours nonstop, like I'm on a treadmill. Imagine what that's like. You on a treadmill and you're totally exhausted. Naturally, the natural person hearts will go back to normal. My hearts will continue beating for 48 hours, and I'll be sweating like I'm working out consistently. It's weird. I go to sleep like that. So when I went to the doctors, I went to Hershey Medical Center, and they checked me out, and they were able to figure it out. I had to go through a number of tests and everything. But I'm glad I did that, because if I did not find out the truth concerning my heart condition, I was going to die within 3 years. So having found this out, because the heart was already so big, so swollen, I was prone for a heart disease. I still am to a condition, but the thing is, with the surgery that was done, it gives me another probably 10 to 15 years. So the surgery can hold on for a period of time, but it's not it doesn't fix the entire problem, but you have a longer period of time you can live. So, and I'm so glad I did. It was uncomfortable. I had to look at myself and say, I wish I didn't know. I wish nobody told me. I wish it's uncomfortable. I don't want to hear this, or I could just face the truth of that condition and do something about it. I'm so glad that I did. I feel much better now. My heart is better now. I'm lifting better. I go to the gym. I'm able to lift like 160 something pounds, bench press and all that. So it's like, I'm so glad for that. It was hard for me to accept, but I'm glad for it. But he has put me in a position where I'm able to deal with myself better and addressing, knowing what my limitation is. I can't run on the court anymore, playing basketball like I used to. So, but all of that has brought about freedom in my life. I'm just saying this to say, if a person struggles with accepting something that is truthful, you have to remember, when the truth comes, it's never to offend you. Sometimes it is your way out. It is your deliverance. It is what's going to make you. It's going to make you a person. It really is. It's uncomfortable. It's the ugly truth. It's the naked truth. But nevertheless, we need that. We need to hear the truth concerning George Floyd's situation, no matter how tough it is. As a culture, particularly Black people, we need to get these truths correctly, or else we're going to remain in bondage to the mentality of what we think about police and the way we think about our culture. There is a major there's a mental plantation, a slavery of the mind of the Blacks in this country that Black folks need to be set free from. And the narrative has to change. The way things are presented have to change. The rest of the story has to be told, or else we're going to remain in that slave mentality. And that's not safe. That's really bad. And that's deadly. That's deadly. If I didn't know about my condition, I would die. And for Black people not to know about the truth concerning some of these situations, death is soon to follow. It's happening progressively, and we can see it in our communities. We're not healing people by hiding the truth from them. That's not fair. We're not healing them. We're not helping them. That's not right. So
in order to heal, you need to hear the truth.
Simple as that. Simple as that. Nothing more, nothing less. Jay, we are ready for you. All right, let's do it. Jay, this is If Black Lives Matter.
Can you put these in the...
Was honest. He said, can you put this? All right, look. It's sniffing some money, guys. All right, let's take a listen.
Can you put these in the duffel bag along with the others? Hi, here at BLM, there's been some controversy surrounding us lately in our efforts to become filthy rich, with some people saying we don't actually stand for the Black community and represent them in our efforts to become filthy rich. So let me clear up all the social justice surrounding the controversy by telling you what we stand for with our actions. By the way, we'd be happy to receive your donations today, so go ahead and do it. We've strategically chosen our name so that if you don't support our mission to destroy the nuclear family and demoralize society with our Marxist values and criminal activity, then it implies you don't like Black people and therefore are a racist. And with that kind of coercion motivating you, you might click here to sign up for our monthly recurring donation program on our website to help bolster our revenue in the name of social justice while proving you're not a racist. And if you donate today, you can rest assured that your money will be equitably embezzled so that our founders can buy yet another mansion in an exclusive neighborhood. Our founders prefer to live in all-white neighborhoods, so please donate generously. When our founders aren't having to resign because systemic racism caught them embezzling again, our donation portal will be open so you can sleep well at night knowing your white guilt is still strong enough to compel you to donate. At BLM, we get directly involved in local communities with boots on the ground efforts. Who's been at the scene of nearly every riot over the past 2 years? Us, that's who. We believe that silence is violence and actual violence is social justice. We know in our hearts that nothing says equity like throwing a brick through the window of a white shop owner.
That shop was owned by a black man.
Well, he was clearly an Uncle Tom, so he just got what was coming to him. If diversity is strength, then embezzlement is power. Come on, guys, it takes a lot of funding to defund the police, so please donate. As innovative thinkers, we know that social justice is created by destroying society while evading the justice system with the help of very friendly Soros-backed DAs. Equity is what we stand for, and the more you donate, the more equity we have in real estate portfolios. As the leaders of the modern day civil rights movement, we say that you should judge a person based on the color of their skin, not the content of their character. It's also coincidentally the definition of racism, which is a very racist definition of racism. Conversely, Martin Luther King Jr. said you should judge a person based on the content of their character, not the color of their skin. But that was a long time ago, and besides, like, what do white people know anyway? We're proud to receive major funding from George Soros. With big donations coming in from kind-hearted people like that, you can know that being a part of our movement will help you become a better person. Just like George Soros. To help end racism, we make everything about race. We understand that in underprivileged communities, 65% of children grow up without their fathers around. And statistically speaking, this leads to poverty and crime. So to help this, we're on a mission to destroy the nuclear family so even less children will have the opportunity to have their fathers around. And based on the math that we did in our third mansion that we bought with your donations, that's exactly what we need in order to turn these statistics around. But with that said, we'd truly rather you just abort your children to keep them from having any kind of chance. And don't you even consider for a moment that there's a difference between the statement Black Lives Matter and the organization Black Lives Matter, because that would ruin our whole plan of creating diversity and inclusion within our bank accounts. A lot of privileged people fly on private jets. So our founders take on the burden of using your donated money to fly private, so you don't have to carry the burden of having us use your donated money to benefit you or anyone else who isn't us. So in the name of racial justice, quit thinking and start donating today. Underprivileged people of color are depending on you to help us upgrade from a mid-sized regional private jet to an intercontinental 737. So you'll have to forgive me if I'm too caring, but I think underprivileged people deserve that. So donate today, unless you're a racist.
I'm live, baby. Okay, I'm finished. Oh, man.
Oh, my goodness. Shots fired. Shots fired.
Shots fired. Somebody got hit. I didn't hear any lies. What part of what he said was a lie? Please tell me now.
No, no lies. No lies detected. I could tell you that.
No lies detected. You know, one thing he said I like is how the BLM movement is fighting racism with racism. But the thing is, they could not do this without the notion of racism.
And that's the thing is BLM doesn't want equality. They want black superiority.
Ooh, say that again. Could you expound on that?
BLM doesn't want black equality. They want black superiority.
And it makes a lot of sense because I did a video, Candace Owen, talking about a list of things that BLM people want. I'm pretty sure you watched that. It was ridiculous. It's like, we want your home, we want your money, we want your this, we want your that. And I'm like, that sounds like Marxist theology at its
And
finest.
it is. It really
Yeah, the
is.
bourgeoisie and the peasants ideology is like, yeah, we just need, we want to take over everything you own and have. There
The
you go.
problem is they don't realize is they're just being used.
It's because they are. I think they refuse to acknowledge that.
I mean, think about it. The person that is controlling them and the person that trained them and the person that's doing most of their funding, like he said, George Soros, is white.
that again, you fighting against white in America, and most of your funding and your training came from white. Now, not the average white man in America. We're talking about the whites who are politically driven with Marxist ideology and communist teachings and everything. So, in essence, they sounds like the real racists are the ones that are backing the Black Lives Matter movement to create more animosity in the hearts of Black people toward their own race and also toward the white race. So it's like,
because they know in order to incorporate the communist agenda, as they've been trying to do for years, the way to do it is through racism. And they can't do that if we unite together as one people. Like, and that's the thing is, I always try to make the distinction between race and ethnicity. Like, we are the human race.
Yes.
There's one race, the human race.
That's right.
There are different ethnicities of Black, Arab, Asian, you know, whatever the case may be.
I like that.
So what we need to do is understand and see through the BS that they're trying to sell us, and understand what the angles that they're coming from to be able to stop what they're doing. And if we don't understand that and we can't see through it, then they're going to get exactly what they want and subvert us from within.
That is disturbing. That leads us
because that's really the entire ideal of communism, and what like stuff like Lenin said and stuff like that is you're never going to be able to defeat America in a war. Straight up.
They know
you're
that.
only going to be able to defeat it if you subvert it from within.
Yeah.
And you're only going to be able to do it if you destroy the American family and destroy religion.
They've been working hard on that. And I think the the Uncle Tom movie outlines that perfectly. That's definitely what we're going to be looking at. But I want to address one thing that he said here in that video. And it's just this idea that they're fighting racism with racism. If they cannot find racists anywhere, they're going to have to create it, because their system is built on that foundation. They can only exist because some level of racism they have to be able to create it somehow. Here is what the Bible says, though: be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. Amen. That is something that a lot of people have a hard time accepting. It's like, you can't fight fire with fire. You can't fight racism with racism. You can fight violence, police brutality, as you said, with tearing down your own community. And actually, in Haiti right now, that's what's going on. There is like these neighborhoods are being overrun with gangsters and everything. They're burning the community down in Haiti because of political corruption. And I asked my dad, I'm like, wait a minute. So when you burn down your community and you're hungry, you need something to eat and you need to go shopping, you need a bag of rice, where do you go? To the White House or to those stores that you burned down? And my dad said, yeah, it's kind of stupid. I said, it is stupid. You have an issue with those in government, but you tear your community apart. You tear your schools apart. You tear your systems apart. But these people that are in government that you have an issue with, they live in gated houses. They have security guards. You don't even come anywhere near them. You really want to address the issue violently, go to these people directly and address them. Or find ways to communicate in ways that you can get their attention. But going apart and destroying your own community doesn't solve that. That's the same thing the Black Lives Matter movement has been doing. But look at these communities today. Have we really done anything?
Prime example. Look at what they called the Summer of Love,
Oh yeah,
$2.5 billion in damages or something like that
yeah.
over the Summer of Love
Mm-hmm.
versus
I'm
the
familiar with it.
Virginia gun rights protest. Okay, they
Mm-hmm.
all went to Virginia state capitol and they all open carried. Number one, not a single person got hurt. Number
Mm-hmm.
two, there was no violence. Not a single building burned down.
What a
Not
difference.
anything happened except people stood there and voiced their opinions.
That's what needs to be done. That's how it's supposed to be done. Oh my Lord, have mercy on us. Okay, this is the highlight of our day today. All right, so we are gonna be watching together Uncle Tom 2. All right, let's turn our screen here. Here we are, Uncle Tom 2. So would you share quickly, Darth Vader, what did you get from watching this movie from your perspective? Generally, and then we can go to some segments.
Generally, what I got from it was there was a lot of things about the civil rights movement that I didn't realize before. There's a lot of things about it that I didn't know. That I found very interesting.
Yeah, me too. Me too. First of all, I want to say, in order to understand Uncle Tom 2, you need to watch Uncle Tom 1 because it sets the foundation for this one. But this stuff opens your eyes in ways I never thought was even possible. Like the lies were so deep. It's like onions. It's like layers of onions, deep in lies, deceptions in which most people are not ready to hear this. They're gonna be like, "No way, no way! This is political identity politics. This is nothing but conservative talking points." They're gonna aim all these different things at it. But if you watch the movie, if you watch the entire movie, and you are honest with yourself, you will sit back and say, Lord Jesus, what have they done to us? That's literally what you will say. And that's kind of a good thing because it opens your eyes. You know, our next live stream, Darth Vader, I'm hoping maybe Sunday or something. There's a video that I found. It's under the movie The Truman Show. You've seen the Truman Show movie. What this person does, he breaks it down and show you how the Truman Show had something to do with, you know, with the stuff we're experiencing right now, which is a good follow-up to this. So there were several things that came to my mind as well as I was watching this. The real history of Black people, where they've been. There were some serious names. Karl Marx came up, and also Antonio Gramsci came up, a philosopher who also was a disciple of Karl Marx, and there were many other things. The education system, the theory of evolution, the influence that it had on the mind, on the mind of the masses. Barack Obama's influence, oh my Lord. These are some things I have on my notes here. Manning John, that I had to get the book, man. He had a book where he was trying to open the eyes of many people. Saul Alinsky. Most people don't even know who these people are, but we need to, because that's why you need to watch Uncle Tom too, because Saul Alinsky gives the blueprint for what Black Lives Matter movement, the organization as a whole, has been doing in the community. If you understand how they go about marching and the way they do it to get politicians to submit to them, you need to understand Saul Alinsky's influence and his practical Marxist ideology with boots on the ground stuff. You gotta watch the movie to get that. Eric Maine, I didn't know Eric Maine was the white man who has helped Patrice Collars and the other two lesbian women to start the Black Lives Matter movement. And that Eric Maine is someone you guys need to look into as well. So there are many other things. Definitely Booker T. Washington came up, and Rodney King. There was a story behind Rodney King's stuff that I didn't know. I'm telling you, the Uncle Tom movie has certainly left me flabbergasted, because I'm like, I can't believe what I'm watching right now. But the evidence was so strong only a fool can deny the effect of that. So we're gonna move on with that. Darth Vader, you can do what you need to do. So we're gonna start with part number 1 when you come back.
All right.
All right, let's do it. Let's move on, and I'm gonna start here with the movie. Let's begin with 5 minutes and 48 seconds. This is going to give us an idea of how blacks were before all the issues we now have. All right, let's begin here.
Today, Black people are constantly being told that because of slavery, because of systemic racism, that their anger and their bitterness and their rage is justified.
Is it possible that as Black people, we are experiencing a PTSD from what they went through 401 years ago?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just because we didn't experiencing it, us learning about the history or even from family stories, it's the same thing.
What did she just say, Darth Vader?
Okay. First off, anybody who has been in the military or has any experience experiencing PTSD will tell you straight up, you do not experience PTSD unless you've actually experienced something yourself.
Yeah.
You cannot experience PTSD for someone else.
Yeah. Like generation of, like your generation and so on, almost to the point of your DNA. That's
Like,
kind of where it's coming from, psychologically
I'm sorry,
speaking.
as a veteran and someone who's been through the grinder,
Mhm.
I take offense to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
That
find
is-
that very offensive that you can say that, yes, you're experiencing PTSD from something that happened to
your
your
ancestors.
family hundreds of years ago.
That's
No,
not even
no,
that's not even
that's
psychology.
not a freaking thing.
That's not true. That's not true. I had the same discussion with my wife, and she was trying to help me to understand how that can impact. I'm like, honey, that's not true. It's just that even the Bible tells you this, like the sins of your fathers are not to be reflected on your children. Now, here is the difference. There are characteristics or characters, or you can receive from your parents' DNA predisposition, certain behavior, certain attitude. You can get that. You can get, because from a sinful perspective, there are things that your fathers did do that can impact your character, that can cause you to become an alcoholic. There are some sexual sins as well. If your parents had struggles with these things, they can pass down through the DNA.
Which is
but
why
you
I
still,
don't drink.
you still, yeah, there we go. But you still have to make a choice to these things. Like none of them have control over your. That's the thing people have to understand. The choice that God has given us can override no matter what circumstances you faced. So no matter what your families or ancestors had been through, you still have the choice to choose otherwise. That's the thing. You have to highlight that. But you may be tempted to think this way. You may be tempted, you may have a stronger temptation toward alcohol, sexual this or sexual that. You may be bent toward homosexuality because of what your parents have gone through. But to choose to be a homosexual, to choose to be an alcoholic, it is really a choice. Now, there are things that can trigger these behaviors, but at the end of the day, I still have to choose to submit myself to it. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean God can help you either. But to say that PTSD falls in that category, that's just nonsense to me.
And not only that, but like this is just giving an excuse for people to blame something other than their own personal responsibility. This is giving an excuse for the victimhood mentality
there we go.
that
And
we've
I
been
think
seeing in the Black community for the last 20 years.
I think that's exactly what they want. We can't keep allowing that. Let's keep going.
That does not make a lot of sense, given that Blacks coming out of slavery had lives that were more functional. the functionality of Black lives at the turn of the century was because Blacks were deeply religious people. They adhered to strong Judeo-Christian values and principles. And to the extent that they get further and further away from those principles, I think that you see more dysfunction in Black communities because they've lost the anchor.
Church was the central point. It was center point of social gathering, culture, religious activity, everything. Every Sunday, you woke up, you had breakfast with your mom and dad, and then all of us came out of the house at the same time, and we start walking toward Sunday school. Even if you couldn't sing, you're going to be in the youth choir. And then Wednesday, you would go to youth Bible study. And then the summer, you go to church retreat camp. Those were just expected things. And that formed a fundamental basis of the Black community. It was that sense of right and wrong. It was that sense of morality. It was that sense of discipline that we had.
The church was producing hope. It produced within the community a stability of purpose. It held us together. Families were strong. Dad was there. Mom was there. The children were growing up under the influence of a two-parent home. That all changed.
It's not because of racism. It's not because of police brutality. It's not because of slavery. It's not because of Jim Crow. It's not because of white supremacists and white privilege and all that crap they're telling you now. It's because of lack of character.
This the gutter right here, you feel me?
Niggas die for this shit.
Niggas
Niggas
die
in jail for this shit.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Like, niggas die for this shit. Niggas live for this shit.
Nigga,
I'm born and raised. Niggas in jail for this shit.
TG. Free
all the homies, everybody. Free Lil Dub, Lil.
Look at the difference.
See, and this is what Tom was talking about in his song. They dumbed down the language, and people in the ghettos have become so complacent with their lifestyle and think, oh, this is all we have. This is all we can do with ourselves. So this is what we are and who we are. And they just accept things for what they are, and they never strive to become better than their station.
That's it. That's it. They adopted, the Black community has adopted through hip hop a culture that was very much opposite to Blacks.
What they actually were.
Used to be. And again, this movie helps you to see that, because by rejecting the church, the gospel, and it's not just Blacks, because many other race too. When you study a little bit about the early revivals in the early 1800s, you will find out there were a lot of other race that were very strong on Christian values. That was like their anchor. The Black race had the same opportunity as well. But what they've done, they've slowly departed from Judeo-Christian beliefs. And now we have this mentality of, supposedly children that are raised in the church, but they are living it for the world. So you have a lot of so-called profession, but they're practicing something completely different. And now they're talking about, we died for this blank. We did, like, really? That is a representation of Black characters today. After all that, these activists and Martin Luther King and all these different things, and we have issues with some of that too. But all that stuff that has been done and all the history that we have now, this is the best we have for the Black race to show for. Are you serious?
And they want to scream and complain when people get when
Yeah.
blacks get stereotyped like that.
Yeah, and they call it racist. You see the black get stereotype, and we say, oh, that's just wrong. That's racist. You have to accept this and accept that. It's like, no, this is how you portray
it's like
yourself.
every stereotype comes with a grain of truth.
Absolutely. Here we are. I did a video recently, a short video about a Cardi B and Megs the Stallion. These ladies went on stage talking about WAP, and I don't even want to describe what that is. You can read between the lines. So when you watch how repulsive that was, you're like, so when they say black people are this, now they have songs like No Voting, No Voting. That's how they appeal to black people, because it's based on a stereotype that we have constructed of ourselves. But we don't want to be called out on this. We think, okay, to be called out and say this is wrong, that means you don't like black people. That means you're not black. Don't play that game with me. We're talking about character flaws here. We're talking about pure wickedness. We're not just talking about character flaws. We're talking about pure wickedness being practiced and glorified among the black community. And as soon as somebody call it out, you want to call them racist. No, that's garbage. You need to own up to this thing and say, okay, this is what we're doing wrong and what we need to do better. And let's find out, where did we go off? And that's how we grow as a people. But to sit there and call it,
how do we fix it?
Yeah. And to sit there and call everything racist because somebody's calling us to our particular sins. And we're addressing black people here, particularly. We're not going after another race, but we're complaining all the time, and we say, man, you can't say this about me, like you're not black or whatever. This is garbage. That's beside the fact. That's beside the fact.
And poor kids are just as smart as black kids.
Thank you, Mr. Joe Biden. All right. Let's keep going.
Black people lost character. Look at all the neighborhoods, the communities, the cities where blacks have taken over. When they move into those areas, they're very nice, but by the time the blacks are done with them, crime, homelessness, they don't paint their homes, they don't clean up. It just become a mess.
We grew up to this shit. Like, ain't nothing.
It's because of lack of family, and most black people today do not believe in God. They believe about him, but they don't believe in him. It wasn't that way when I was growing up, but it's that way today.
If you walk through any black urban community, you see many black men standing on corners doing nothing.
Get this paper. That's the only thing you can do, unless these niggas want smoke, you know?
Give me a break. These people are wild. So we're gonna move to part two. Get this paper. That's the only thing we can do. Oh, give me a break. You can go to school. You can get out of the hood. You can choose
to
learn
a trade. You can get a job.
Give me a break. There are so many things you can do. Stop it.
They just don't want to put in the effort or the work.
I'll tell you what the problem is. Too many hip hop music. These guys, they're just carrying out the examples they saw in hip hop music. But what they don't realize, what these hip hop artists do and how they live are two different things. What they preach to you and what they live are two different things. And most black people, unfortunately, that are moved, and not just blacks, because this stuff has gone wild. Hip hop has gone so big, even to the pack. I was listening to a document where even in China, the spirit of hip hop is corrupting the young people in China as well. So it's not a joke. What has happened is we've had poor role models set up before us. We've glorified the gangster. We've glorified the drug dealer. We've glorified the whoremonger, the sexual men, those prostitutes are the ones we've glorified in the community. And we said that's an example of black power, of success. And we like, no, that is not an example of black power and success. And we are reaping the consequences of that in our neighborhoods. That's what happened.
And what they don't understand is most of these rappers that they're listening to that are all thugging out and hard and everything have college degrees. Seriously, like most of them have like college degrees in business and things of that nature.
Yeah, and they live a decent life, you know. It's crazy. I was saying to Cardi B, she was on Instagram and she was doing all her stuff, grinding and all that, stuff. And her daughter walked into the room, and she quickly covered herself up, covered the eyes of her daughter, and okay, how you doing, honey? All right, go over this way, and da 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 da. And as soon as the daughter went out of the camera, and she went back to the screen, started stretching her stuff all over again in front of our sons and daughters. I say, you are such a hypocrite. So you are standing in front of the screen, grinding and showing our sons and daughters how to treat women, how our daughters are to open their legs to other men who are not even their husband. They get into prostitution, they're getting sold out, they're being pimped out, sex slave. You are part of that culture. So, but you cover the eyes of your own daughter. You make sure you stay married to your husband while you're making videos about women putting stuff down their throat. This is what you do. But nobody's allowed to call you out on it because it's entertainment. It's good for our culture, and no wonder why. The suicidal rate is so horrible. It's horrible.
That's just it. It's terrible.
It's terrible, but nobody can call you out on it because it's racist. Oh, please give me a break. Anyway, let's move on. So this is part 2 where we are talking about the power of we're moving now to secular education. Let's look at that.
Gotta switch the sound around.
Oh, okay. Thank you. 37.
No sound.
Sorry.
One-room schoolhouse. That's how.
Generation by generation.
Most people assume that mandatory government education has been the norm throughout the history of the world. It hasn't even been the norm throughout the history of America. Mandatory government education doesn't exist until the latter part of the 19th century. Before that, it was unthinkable the government would be in charge of education. Education is not mentioned in the U.S. Constitution. It is not part of the purview of the United States government. Before mandatory government education, where is education controlled? Church and the family. Homeschools, dame schools, one-room schoolhouse. That's how everybody's educated. Why do you need to control education in the Marxist worldview? To supplant Christianity and to replace it with secularism. Applying Darwinian ideas and Marxist ideas to child development and education.
Dumb now. No.
In Tennessee, there's still a law against teaching the theory of evolution in public schools. That law was tested once in 1925 in the famous monkey trial. Now, the man being tried for his views was schoolteacher John Scopes, who was arrested for teaching Darwin's theory of evolution, that man was descended from monkeys.
The Bible was used in schools all across America to teach values and culture. Bible reading was not something that people felt threatened by.
His opinion of the Supreme Court decision banning prayer in schools, the president says,
the Supreme Court has made a judgment. A good many people obviously will disagree with it. Others will agree with it.
Prayer was ended in school first in 1962, and then 1963, Bible reading.
And I would hope that as a result of this decision that all American parents will intensify their efforts at home.
Would you
go to court if you had to pray in school?
Yes.
Why?
Because some people aren't religious.
What?
Because some people aren't religious.
And what does that mean?
And that means that it wouldn't be fair for them to have to pray in school.
When people start talking about taking back the schools or bringing God back to the schools, these are people who are demonstrating their ignorance because government education was founded for the purpose of usurping religion and God.
Fuck you, fucking white people. Racist. We love abortion.
You see, this is another side of the story that oftentimes we don't know about, right? The power of education and how it was subverted from homeschool to public school and how God was kicked out.
Well, let's call it what it is. It's no longer education. It's indoctrination.
Indoctrination camp, like you said. That's exactly what this movie shows. In order for the Marxist view to be carried out, the people must be re-educated.
And you start young. You start with a new generation.
That is scary. That is scary. So we can move to the next part here. We're talking about ideological subversion. Now, this part here, I gotta tell you, that's gotta be my favorite part because there goes a think individual.
That is a phrase that
We're seeing the outworkings. We're seeing the fruit of this ideology, and it's doing what it was designed to do.
The fruit of an educational system that has totally destroyed.
Did you hear what they were saying? Did you hear what they were saying, Darth Vader?
Yeah.
I'm not even going to repeat that. Let's continue.
Yeah. It's not worth repeating.
Destroyed our country. You're seeing the impact of Marxian ideas, the impact of secular humanism in the schools.
ideological subversion, that is a phrase that I'm afraid some Americans don't fully understand. When the Soviets used the phrase ideological subversion, what do they mean by it?
Ideological subversion is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism. And you can see it quite clearly that the influence of Marxist-Leninist ideas in the United States is absolutely fantastic. The demoralization process in the United States is basically completed already. The result you can see. Most of the people who graduated in the 60s, dropouts or half-baked intellectuals, are now occupying the positions of power in the government, civil service, business, mass media, educational system. You are stuck with them. You cannot get rid of them. They are contaminated. They are programmed to think and react to certain stimuli in a certain pattern. Not even Comrade Andropov and all his experts would even dream of such a tremendous success. A person who was demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I shower him with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, even if I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him concentration camp, he will refuse to believe it. When a military boot crashes his balls, then he will understand. Most of the American politicians, media, and educational system trains another generation of people who think they are living at a peacetime. False. The United States is in the state of war, undeclared total war against the basic principles and the foundations of this system.
This has to be one of my favorite part of the entire movie. This idea of ideological subversion. Boy. So what's your thought and perspective on that, Darth Vader?
He's so right on the money with this, because I mean, it started back in the 60s with the hippies and
Summer
the
love.
baby boomer generation.
Mm-hmm.
And now those are the people who are in government and are in power. The people like Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
You know, and their radical ideas of how to bring about socialism and communism, and standing in bread lines is a good thing.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
No, it's not. That's
It's
not a
not.
good thing.
Yeah.
Ask anybody who's come from a country who's had to stand in a bread line. That is not a good thing, because you could be standing in a bread line by the time you get up there, the bread's gone.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, and it's only since the last, I'd say maybe 2 decades, since Obama got into office, that they've really ramped up the rhetoric. And they've really stepped up their efforts in trying to persuade the children and the youth and the next generation to push these ideals and push this agenda, and just cramming it down their throats.
That is scary. Yeah, hey, here we are today. You know, ideological subversion, demoralize the nation, deconstruct. What was the second thing he said? There were 3 steps that you're supposed to go through, but I'm gonna have to go and rewind that. But it's crazy because these things were actually very biblical. It's like if you look at how in every nation, this is the same thing Satan has done. He has demoralized the nation.
Deconstruction, subversion, and inversion.
Yes. And then I've heard another, it's called something called Hegelian dialectic, right? The Hegelian dialectic concept is a thesis, synthesis, antithesis. So this act, it's like action, reaction, and solution. So you create a problem and you let people react to the problem. Once they react, you impose your initial solution that you had in mind. So whatever that solution is was something you wanted to have in the first place, but you could not get it unless you had an action reaction, and then you can.
So you have to create a disaster so that way you can make yourself the savior complex.
There we go. Perfect. That's really what's been going on here.
Sounds very familiar with what we've been experiencing over the last 2 years and certain things and
Yeah. Yeah. You already know. Let's move on. Let's move on. YouTube Thought Police. We're gonna escape that strike. Let's go on. So this is Eric Main, and I think we have about 20 minutes I can hang with. So let's make the best of it. This is Eric Main. He is responsible for a lot of stuff that's happening behind the Black Lives Matter movement. I want you to take a listen to this, and then we're gonna move on with Booker T. Washington, and then one more, and we end it.
At these black pastors taking marching orders.
One spokesman is always selected.
May I have your attention, please? We're going to the mayor's office and then to the Chamber of Commerce. I'm Reverend Fletcher Bryant, who will be the spokesman. I am the spokesman, one spokesman for the organization. A week ago,
He is told that he's got to have a specific question and stay with it.
a specific request in regard to jobs in the face of a crisis in job inequities in the Negro community.
Some 916 jobs appear to be available. That includes the 600 jobs that the county is making available.
Never let the mayor get off of it.
But then you're saying that they have not delivered at this point. And the second point I'd like to
you're
raise...
saying it. I'm not saying
This
it.
is one thing in terms of tactics. You sit with a political leader and you say, this is the question.
Are these jobs of a temporary or permanent nature?
I haven't got the full specifics on them. Some of them will be...
You don't hear him. Do you recognize us or don't you?
Well, let me at this time, Mr. Mayor, make crystal clear Bill's position on this job matter.
to the extent that you have black pastors involved.
Minister Florence, were you successful in getting the Kodak stockholders list?
These were just black frontmen.
They denied us the right to see it again. Same racist tactic.
Saul Alinsky is very strategic in what he's doing.
Minister Florence interrupted him.
I want to make a quick correction. His name is Saul Alinsky, not Eric Main. Eric Main comes in a little bit later. So this part is Saul Alinsky's impact in teaching people how to get what they want from government and to manipulate the emotion of the masses. It's a very amazing communist technique. You gotta get the movie, guys, because we can't get through everything in one session here. So,
and if they don't get what they want, they call it racist.
Yep. That's perfectly what's going on, and you see it not only done with the Black Lives Matter movement and all these social activists and social justice warriors mentality, and also you see this with even the transgender movement. It's the same mentality. It's the same thing, discrimination, transphobic. So they weaponize words to eventually subvert any ideology they want and get what they want.
And if you notice, back then they had to use black pastors because they knew black people were so into their religion and they were so tied to it that they had to use black pastors to get this agenda pushed forward.
Well, they couldn't do it without the help of the black ministers because, like you said, we relied so much on our black pastors back then. It should have never been the case, period. We should have relied more on the word. But the church involvement was crucial. Without the church submitting to that, there was no way you could have gotten, this change. And that's why I said before, there is a statement that goes like this, right? The sins of the world lies at the doors of the church. And I hate to say this, is that the world only reflects the attitude of the church. It's like people may not want to believe this. But again, when you understand what Jesus was talking about when he said, you are the light of the world. So he's like, if you let your light shine, the world sees the light, they will follow. So they may not all become Christian, but the Bible says they will see your good works and glorify your Father, which is in heaven. So the thing is, when the church is in apostasy, when the church is submitting to the world, when the church is not doing things God's way, the world simply take that to the extreme.
Along with it.
Yeah, it follows along. Yeah, and it's to the extreme. That's simply what it is. It's just, we set the trend as Christians. And unfortunately, when we don't do it right, the world picks up on it and they take off with it,
And not only that, but I think the other part of it is I don't think they realized back then is they were using black pastors to discredit the church.
Oh yeah, that's another thing.
This did a lot of damage to discredit Christians and the church and all of that stuff, so that now that we got that out of the way, we could focus on other things, which allowed people like BLM to come in and take up that mantle. And now we have a secular version of the church that can replace the church.
That is scary. Here we are.
That's straight up Marxism for you. That's how Marxism works. They have to replace the church with a different form of religion, only a secular version of it.
Well done. Diabolically speaking, well done. Here we are. So let's move on to the next part. We're gonna hear Eric Main. He's coming. Yeah, he's coming soon. Let's keep this.
Calling for a point of order.
He's very calculated in his approach to organize people and to affect change. It made me think about Black Lives Matter, because Black Lives Matter is a modern organization.
The reality is that race in the United States operates on a spectrum from black to white.
The prevailing narrative is that 3 black women who are concerned about black people, who love black people. These are the women who started Black Lives Matter, and that it's a black movement, and every white person associated with it is merely an ally.
It is a tool for our allies to show up differently for us.
I was wondering, is there a white Marxist behind Black Lives Matter?
Displacement, genocide, and climate crimes. A laundry list or a web of connected crises? Our next guest has been helping people's movements make the links for decades now. He's Eric Mann of the Labor Community Strategy Center right here in Los Angeles. How did you get started?
Well, I come out of a Jewish socialist
What I found is Eric Mann.
I've been organizing with the Congress of Racial Equality, Students for Democratic Society, worked with the Black Panther Party, was in SDS, was in Weatherman, went to prison for political issues.
When you look into Eric Mann, you look at what he believes and what he wants.
Free the U.S. 2 million prisoners, and 100,000 less police. Free, safe, and legal abortion with public support and financing, and minors having the right to abortion without parental consent. Reparations for the transatlantic slave trade, unconditional amnesty and option of citizenship for 12 million immigrants, end the war on drugs.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry, Darth Vader. Go ahead.
Notice one of the big things that he mentioned there,
Mm-hmm.
the Democratic Party.
Mm-hmm. he lumped them all in there.
Yeah, that was one of the things that really caught my attention when I saw this. I was like, wait a minute. He's working with the Democratic Party, but yet the Democratic Party isn't about racism.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Supposedly.
They're supposedly about not racism, but yet everything that he says in this section is extremely racist, and not white racist, but black racist.
Yeah, I think what's happening, a lot of people that are racist, they've attached themselves to movements to supposedly debunk or get rid of racism, but they really are the one promoting racism. It's like you never heard the idea that goes, if you can't
beat them, join.
If you can't beat them, join them. So it's literally what happened. So there is a history in the church that I've studied before.
I think this is more along the lines of, if you live long enough, if you're the hero long enough and you live long enough, you see yourself become the villain.
That's crazy. So yeah, that makes perfect sense. There's a history of the early church, and when you study this in Revelation chapter 6, it's talking about the white horse, the red horse, and the black horse and the pale horse. When you carefully study it, it's really giving you a history of Christianity. There's a lot of people who misinterpret that completely, but when you carefully study this, actually I have a whole study on one of my other YouTube channels about that. But when you study this, it's like the white horse was like the early church. They were pure, they were conquering hearts, they were sharing the gospel and everything. And then here came the red horse. The red horse was like bloody persecution under the Roman Empire. Christians were not allowed to do this, and they were thrown in amphitheater. They were being killed under Nero and so on, and all these different emperors, Roman emperors. So the Christians were being persecuted, but they continue to be strong. And when you study about the black horse is significant, because what the black horse shows you was that the red horse was trying to kill them, but the red horse realized the more we kill Christian, the more they grow. So how about we get into the church? So under the black horse, what happened is the pagans went to church. So supposedly Constantine became a Christian, so he went inside of the church and got baptized, and he brought all these pagan ideologies and all these so-called relics. He begins to worship the idols of the pagans and give them biblical names. And this is kind of where the Catholic Church was birthed, because all these so-called idols we see in the Catholic Church today, you may think, oh yeah, the Catholic Church, they got all these saints, but no, actually these were pagans idols that Constantine brought into the church, and they were Christianized and they were labeled Christians. None of them actually had anything to do with any saints, not the Apostle Paul. Mary became the mother of God. All of this stuff were not, these were the Queen Diana. Saint Peter really was the god of, there were all these different pagan gods, really, the sun god. So when you study all of that, you're like, oh, look at that. All these pagan idols went into the church, and what they were able to do, instead of me overcoming the church with war and fight, how about we infiltrate the movement and then we subvert it from within? That's exactly what these Marxist ideology have done. They know we can't fight America with war and weapon. They know they don't stand a ghost of a chance against our military.
So
I'm not
it's
necessarily
a war of ideals.
Yeah. So instead, we're gonna change the ideology. Let's submerge. Let's find a weak spot. Let's go through the back door and let's just get in there with under the notion we are here to help. So in that process, we end up subverting them from within.
There's actually a video game called Sid Meier's Civilization, and when you're playing it, you go to an opposing city, and there's two ways you can take it over. You can either take it over via an army, or you can send in your diplomats and subvert it and take it over subvertively.
Yeah,
and that's what's happening here. Is
the Trojan horse.
Yeah, basically it's the Trojan horse. We're being taken over subvertively.
That is so crazy. Here we are. It's crazy. I have to give them credit though. Diabolically speaking, well done. All right, let's move on to okay. Let's move on to Booker T. Washington.
Don't forget switch sound.
Irish person whose family survived the Irish potato famine and then came to America. It's part of our origin story as America. My Jewish brother whose family survived the Holocaust and then came to the United States. You could go on and on and on. And what you eventually realize is that God, in his providence, has brought us all from hardship.
That's right.
Divine providence was clearly operating in the lives of Black Americans. Yes, slavery was horrible, but out of slavery came Black America. If you look at the accomplishments of Blacks throughout history, that would not have happened had they not come to America. We are blessed.
It is a great satisfaction to have connected with the race of men and women who are able to do something that enhances the comforts and conveniences of life. As you go on, increasing your ability to do things of value, you will find that the problem, which often nowadays looks more and more difficult of solution, will gradually become easier.
Booker T. Washington was my hero. When I was in high school, they used to take us over to Tuskegee. Every summer, we would spend a week over there, staying in the dorm and learning about Booker T. Washington. A lot of Black people don't understand what he was all about.
When he came to Alabama, when he came to Tuskegee, he pushed work, industry, and the books. He didn't have pity on these former slaves.
We must recognize the fact that our capacity is very largely different from that of the people of the white race. I know we like to say the opposite. It sounds well in compositions, does well in rhetoric, and makes a splendid essay. But to say that we are equal to whites is to say that slavery was no disadvantage to us. This is all we can say of ourselves. With proper development, our condition and capacity will be the same as those of the people of any other race.
This was crucial for me. What he said here. We're not saying there's no history. We're not saying there wasn't an impact. We're not saying there wasn't pain inflicted, a level of disadvantage. We're not saying there isn't one. What we are saying is, let's stop making excuses for moving forward. I think that's literally what he is saying in summary here. And every other race will say the same.
Yeah, and that as an ethnicity, you can rise above it.
Yeah, ethnicity. Yeah, much better. Yeah, you could, and every other ethnicity have done that.
Yeah,
and especially that's what America is the melting pot. It gives you that opportunity. We have that opportunity here to do it. There's no other country that is more blessed to be and exist as a black man than the United States of America. There is none other.
And quite honestly, I think that's something that the black community has lost sight of, is that it's about equal opportunity, not equal outcome. Just because you think you deserve it doesn't mean you don't have to work for it.
Yeah.
You have the opportunity to get it. You're only going to get out of it what you put into it.
That's right. The outcome has a lot to do with how much you invest in bringing about whatever change is necessary. So the opportunity is given to you, but the outcome is not. And the same is true for every other race. And I think if you look at a lot of other blacks from different countries, like, from Haiti, from Africa, from different parts of the world, when they come to the United States, they prosper naturally. You don't catch very few of those you're going to see on the streets. You're going to see behind bars. Majority of them come with a different mentality because they know what suffering is like, what pain is like. They know what injustice is like from their own country. When they come here, it's like, man, there's so much you can do here. Like, what excuse do you have living in this country? You're not disabled. You can work. You're not sick. It's like you have no reason.
Take their opportunities for granted.
Yeah, they do.
Really do.
Yeah, and it's not good. The Chinese are doing perfectly fine, and they are among the most prosperous in this country right now. A lot of immigrants are doing fine. I lived in New York, and it's like all the stores in New York were owned, and the gas station, they were owned either by a Hindu person, an Indian, or some Chinese individual. Even the Chinese food in all of our black neighborhoods were immigrants. So they barely speak any English. They have the big, tall glass. And here we are in the black community buying from immigrants that are building businesses in our own city. And I was like, check this out. Like, how many of these businesses, very few businesses that I saw in Brooklyn were owned by black people. Very, very few. Most of them were owned by immigrants or by whites. That was it. That was it. You may work for the people, but you don't own. The actual owner was someone either
because they're not willing to put the time, effort, and money behind what they're complaining about, to put in the effort and time and money to do the job that needs to be done to be able to run a successful business.
But when you have that victim mentality, you can't do that, though. You see, the victim mentality, it stops you because you're worrying consistently about an enemy. Yeah, you're worrying so much about an enemy that is coming to get you. You can't focus on what really matters, and all of those that are open before you, you just can't get out.
It's that brain soup.
Brain soup. I love that. It's sad, but a change has to come. That's why these conversations are necessary, and the change has to come before it is too late.
He was influencing people to take advantage of their own lives, do the best with what they had.
Getting out there and working hard and earning things on your own.
Be an entrepreneur. Start your own business. Build your community.
We need to look to ourselves. We need to transform from within.
He urged black people to set your bucket where you are and make your success right there where you are.
Cast down your bucket where you are. A third and fourth statement for Walker was that. Cast down your bucket where you are. Captain of this press person, last Indian country, cast down your bucket.
It is said that necessity is the mother of invention. The need to have goods and products available to us in our community, entrepreneurs came up. Black stores, black doctors and dentists and other professionals established their business. Influenced by a Judeo-Christian ethic that says if you don't work, you don't eat. A Judeo-Christian ethic that talked about the father to be the provider and to take care of the family. innovation and creativity produced the kind of responsiveness that we see take place. Texas, Georgia, Atlanta was bustling. Oklahoma.
No one ever loses anything by being a gentleman or a lady. No person ever lost anything by being broad. Remember that if we are kind and useful, if we are moral, no matter what people say about us, they cannot pull us down. But on the other hand, if we are without the spirit of usefulness, if we are without morality, without economy and property, without all those qualities which go to make a people and a nation great and strong, no matter what we say about ourselves, we are losing ground. Nobody can give us these qualities merely by praising us and talking well about us. And when we possess them, nobody can take them from us by speaking ill of us.
When you look at these pictures, you get a sense of what Black life was like in an era where we're told that Black people were unhappy.
Some of them look pretty prosperous.
Richard Samuel Roberts, he captured almost 2 decades of Black life in the South during a time when today we're told Black people could not mobilize upward. And in these photos, it tells a true story.
After slavery ended, there were a lot of very successful Black people. They abounded in a lot of different places.
I grew up down in Alabama. When I was growing up, we were not raised to hate. We were never taught that America was bad and that we were not Americans. We were raised to love America. We were taught about slavery, but not in a way where it made you hate. My family and other Black people around me were working their own land. Those that wanted to go to college went to college, or they started their own business.
My father was born in 1915 in the Jim Crow South, Athens, Georgia. My father always taught my brothers and me that the door is wide open. I never felt like I was a victim. I never even felt we were poor. I remember thinking my father was rich. I remember asking my father for a quarter, and he went in his pocket and he gave it to me. And I thought my dad was rich. My dad was a janitor.
Elder did not come to his politics by accident. His father, Randolph, was dirt poor with little education. He went to night school, held down 2 jobs, and raised a family.
He was a janitor until I was 10 years old. Then he started a little small business, a cafe not too far from downtown LA. And my father was always about working hard and not making excuses.
When Larry says, look, if you just forget the issue of racism, just put your head down, study hard, work hard, you're going to be all right in the end. You think that's true?
It worked for me. It worked for me.
That was Black America, but it's an America that we don't learn about, specifically because whenever you have something to be proud of, people have less of a chance of controlling you.
People walking around talking about make America great again.
So we've done heard all these amazing stories, right? Now here comes the downfall.
Here comes the ethnicity hustlers.
Here they comes to subvert and undo with the victim mentality. Oh, Lord have mercy.
I'm telling you, Jet. Echo.
It's repulsive. It's repulsive.
Got an echo.
I'm sorry. Oh, go ahead. Sorry about that.
Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton are two of the biggest ethnicity hustlers there are. Every chance they get, they try to use ethnicity to bash and divide. Like under Obama, it got even worse. And that's when they really came to prominence. And the sad part is they bash Trump for being racist, yet you go back in time and you can find pictures of them giving an award to Trump for not being I can't think of what the name of it is.
But I even saw how many. There's a video I'm gonna do too. With I think it's George Joe Brown was talking about how Trump used to give loans to blacks and stuff.
Yeah,
and they loved him. He was like every theme. He was a theme of their songs all the time. But all of a sudden, he became a Republican, and then he became the worst individual ever.
Yeah, he did more for the black community under his 4 years of presidency than Obama did in 8.
Yeah. Ooh, boy, let's not talk about that.
I mean, well, I mean, let's think about it. I mean, he guaranteed funding for HBCUs of $10 million a year for pretty much all of eternity until Joe Biden wiped that out on his first day.
Yeah.
He pardoned more black people from prison for minor offenses than any president in history.
True.
I mean, I could go on, but we'd be here all day. I mean, there was not a single racist bone in his body. And when they tried to take that comment he made about Charlottesville, everybody, if you can't see how that was taken out of context, then you're either willfully blind or you're just brain soup at this point because you don't have a functioning brain. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is.
It's true.
Because he said, aside from the neo-Nazis, because I condemn racism in the utmost.
I've heard that.
There were both good people on both sides. He was talking about the local population of Charlottesville, not the people who were bussed in from Antifa or the neo-Nazis. He was talking about the local population of Charlottesville. That's not a racist statement.
No, it's not. But, you know, race hustlers will find racism and even create it, even if it doesn't exist. You and I know that.
Exactly. And Al Sharpton, like I said, Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson are two of the biggest ones there are out there. I've said it time and time and time and time again. I've been screaming it from the rooftops. And the only reason they do it is because it makes them rich.
Yep. That's really
now what I want to know is who's pulling their strings.
Well, if you watch Uncle Tom too, you get the picture. So let's take 2 more minutes of this and then we're gonna wrap it up. Okay, guys. Let us know who else is watching with us still. Let's keep going.
Enslaved, and then had to fight Jim Crow, and then fight for the right to vote.
It has now gotten to the point where it is impossible for me to believe black leaders and the black struggle in America. I see the lies and the manipulation from the media, black leaders, the dumb, ignorant, cowardice, brain dead people who are ruining our country on a false narrative. I'm willing to deny 90% of what people are saying.
You know, I imagine the slaves.
Here's why.
Thought, thank God
We're going to all be one.
The first legal slave owner was a black man. Hundreds of black people owned slaves during slavery. But yet our entire plight of the black community is because of slavery. Look at the 1920s and 30s when Black Wall Street was around and black people prospered. Black people were successful, they were working hard, they were building things. Concentration of black success and wealth in the 20s and 30s that we don't even see today after the civil rights movement. I'm starting to become skeptical of the civil rights movement. We are not told the entire truth of the civil rights movement because Martin Luther King was a socialist.
Free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Are we just hearing his one speech and people are glorifying his one speech like they glorify BLM?
Racism is not only happening in the United States.
In 20 years from now, Black Lives Matter is going to be the new Martin Luther King movement. And nobody's going to correct history.
Dramatic videotape obtained by Channel 5 News shows what appears to be a group of LAPD officers beating a suspect.
Many of us who had been trying to convince the public that these kind of incidences were happening were almost relieved. It was like, finally, it was on camera.
This is why you can hardly ever trust black people in this country.
King suffered a fracture.
I did not know that Rodney King took cops on a high-speed chase. And then I went back in the context of that whole scenario. Rodney King never complied. Rodney King was a criminal, ruining the black community almost every year of his life. And all of a sudden he becomes a god.
Building's on fire.
Oh my God.
Terrible. And there's no police presence down here.
The same Rodney King mentality is what we see from the black community even now. Rodney King is a Philando Castile.
We need to get disruptive a little bit. We need to let them know our pain and what we feel.
Eric Garner.
Angry crowd tonight in the streets of
Jacob Blake.
Overnight fires and looting.
Breonna Taylor.
Officers no.
Dramatic videotape obtained.
Rodney King is the same thing that they're doing today.
The death of Eric Gardner. Philando Castile. Deadly police shootings.
And we are brainwashing people into believing a history that never happened.
Memorial Day marks 100 years since the Tulsa Race Massacre.
The infamous massacre that took place in Tulsa, Oklahoma, 1 century ago.
The worst incidents of racial violence in this country, the Tulsa Race Massacre of 1921.
The Tulsa Massacre was a race riot before, 2018. These black activists and scholars turned it into the massacre.
Race massacre.
Race massacre.
Tulsa Race Massacre.
President Biden will visit Tulsa, Oklahoma to mark the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre.
This was not a riot. This was a massacre.
That Tulsa Massacre is bullcrap.
A white mob killed some 300 black Americans.
300 black people died. That's not confirmed at all.
Descendants of the massacre are calling for justice.
They use this example as to why Black America was never able to build wealth.
It's pretty much a reflection of just the black experience in America in general.
Never able to pass down wealth generationally to their children.
What would I?
You gotta get the movie. We gotta stop right here. This stuff, it gets deep, and I had to watch it 3 times, and I have a paper full of notes, full of notes. I end up buying some books. I end up, I'm still getting into the heart of this thing. It's an amazing movie to watch. But again, what is your final thought and perspective on some of this? Go ahead.
I think the black community's been lied to far too often, far too much.
Mm-hmm.
And they have been fed a lot of hogwash that a lot of them believe are truth. And they need to see reason and see the light. And if they don't, they need a lot of prayer.
Absolutely. I think we are better than that. And I will say this. What I think is lacking from the black community as well, the teaching of these social justice warriors over time, they have taught us how to be ungrateful. The
And
reason I like,
hateful.
yeah, well, that's literally what follows as a result. When you become ungrateful, anything goes from this point forward. Covetousness, hate, backbiting, complaining, everything follows. Let me show you what I mean. When you go to the Bible, right? This is Israel. They were free from Egypt. God brought them out with a mighty hands. But look at their attitude, right? So as after God got them out of Egypt and they went through uh, the parting of the Red Sea, one of the greatest miracles ever done by God in the Bible. So they saw the goodness of God, God's protection, God's provision. So while this is happening, look at their attitude. They said unto Moses, because there were no graves in Egypt, hast thou brought us away to die in the wilderness? Because they were facing a difficult situation. Look at their mindset coming from slavery. Now you gotta get this, because these were people that were once enslaved, that are freed, and they were determined to go back to being slaves. Like this mentality in the Bible is the same thing we've seen in the black community. Like, pay attention to this. Wherefore hast thou dealt with us, thus with us, to carry us forth out of Egypt? And then here it is. Their attitude is, we were in Egypt, we were slaves, and you brought us out. You brought us out here to die. Look at what they say. Is this the word? Is this the word that we did tell thee in Egypt, saying, leave us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? For it had been better for us to serve the Egyptians than we shall die in the wilderness. You got this thing? Look at their attitude, right? You freed us from Egypt. You brought us into you journeying with us into this promised land. But the attitude of the people was this: yeah, you have gotten us out of Egypt by the grace of God, but you have not gotten Egyptians out of us. It's beautiful. Like, I mean, not beautiful, it's scary. So the thing is, a lot of what I'm seeing in this passage is very much parallel to what we're seeing happening among the blacks. And again, it's not just black people fault. This has been, it's a mindset. Our ancestors were slaves, and we supposedly are now free, but the mentality is, I want to go back to slavery. And this stuff happens spiritually as well. We come out of sin and God is leading us on to a better land. And the natural heart is, I want to go back to the way things used to be. It's this natural progression toward apostasy. Unless God, by his grace, maintains and keep you and you surrender your heart to him daily, you will find yourself going backward. And I think what's going on here is this shifting that is happening, where the race, instead of progressing toward prosperity and freedom and to do better, they are regressing. They are regressing toward apostasy, toward slavery all over again. But right now, what we see happening is more physical slavery, is more mental. And in the same way, the same thing happens during sin. Like, we need to have an attitude of gratitude, because if you don't have that, you're going to have a difficult time appreciating the blessings of God. Being in this country is almost like God took us out of Egypt and he brought us to the promised land. America is literally like the promised land. You can compare it to that, because it really has a lot of great qualities. Nations will flee from wherever they were to come here in these United States. Doesn't mean it was perfect in the beginning, and it still not is. But when we come together and we lay aside our differences and we work together as a nation, it's amazing what God can do with us. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're good.
Like, my mic just went out for me. I don't know why. But anyway, so this is it. I know. Oh, there it is. This is, I'm looking for Philippians chapter 4, verse 6. Be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. And the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep your hearts and mind through Christ Jesus. And this is the part I want to highlight. Don't worry about what's going wrong, right? But you pray, you supplicate the throne of God, but you must have thanksgiving in everything. So when you are thankful, man, you learn to go past your present circumstances. You like to look beyond. And I think the black race has been taught to be ungrateful. And as a result, there's hate and there's all kind of issues. We have so many opportunities here in this country to do better, to be better. And I think the enemy loves to see people just complain and whine and pine. It doesn't work for them. Israel, they were supposed to leave Egypt and go to the promised land in 40 days. 40 days. Because of their sins, they spent 40 years in slavery. So even though they were freed from Egypt, but they were still enslaved with the Egyptian mentality. They had that. They were still mentally slaved. They stayed in the wilderness for 40 something years because they didn't want to go along with God's plan. We are repeating that history as Black people. If we're not careful, we are repeating exactly that. We are repeating exactly that. And it's scary. And that has to change.
Yeah,
That's
I mean, that's pretty much where it comes down to is you're basically seeing history repeat itself. The whole thing with the civil rights movement and everything is just a vicious cycle where it's coming back around to repeat itself, but it's all falsified, made up, and convoluted crap that is all in people's heads. They don't look at this country for what it is and the opportunities that they're given.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame. Michael, you said Booker T warned people about the race pimps like Jesse and Al Sharpton will benefit from their grievance industry. He did. We didn't listen to them. We thought these guys were not good enough.
A lot of people in the past warned us about a lot of things that are happening now, and people didn't heed their warnings.
Yeah. Here we are. Well, guys, it's been real. Certainly, like and subscribe, comment below. These videos will be coming out in spurts later on. I mean, maybe tomorrow. We have a few more videos coming out this week. I have like 2 more videos coming out today. So how about we close with a word of prayer? I got to get my mom to work. She started at 3. Or Darth Vader, would you mind closing up with a word of prayer for us today?
Certainly. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. We come before you today and beseech you that you look over our nation and be with us in this time of need, in this time of strife, and heal our wounds, and be with those who need healing, and be with those in the prayer request section of the Discord. Though I may not know them all specifically by name, you know them. You know their desires. You know their hearts. Please be with them. We bear their concerns and their requests. We bring them to your feet and lay them burdens down. We also ask that you be with Megan as she has issues with her issues, and that you look after her and take care of her.
Yes, Lord.
And I pray that you allow my surgery to go well tomorrow and no complications. And we pray that you bring blessings upon this chat and everyone who hears this, and open their minds and their hearts to your word and to your message that we're trying to get across to people, that they might be willing to listen and be willing to understand what is happening. And this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. That was amazing. Thank you so very much. I'm keeping you in my prayer as well. Surgery's coming up. So
yeah, it'll be 5:45 a.m. tomorrow.
Oh gosh. How about let me pause and have a word of prayer with you now, since we are here. Lord, we want to thank you for Mr. Darth Vader and his insight and his wisdom. Thank you for sharing me with such an amazing friend. I pray that you will look over this man, watch over this man, and keep him in the palms of your hands. We trust that the doctors will do right by you, but we do not trust in men. We trust in God, who will be used by you. We will trust in God, who will use men to do his will. So I pray that every cutting, every decision, every thinking processes will be ordained by you, that they will be able to carry out their deeds accordingly. Father, thank you once again for the success. We know that he will do well. He will recover. he will deal with whatever pain that is going on in his body, Father. We're asking for a speedy recovery as well. And the family support during this time. Thank you for his loving mother who will be there supporting as well. And also the wife and all the rest of them. We will be waiting with great hope and expectation for his recovery, since you are the one who heals all our maladies. You heal us of all diseases. We thank you for the healing that you're about to do for Mr. Darth Vader ahead of time. We pray and ask all these things with thanksgiving in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, my man. Thank you so very much. God bless you, everyone.
Thank you.
It's been real. Make sure you like and subscribe to the page. Make sure you do that. It's very significant that you guys do that. Until next time, and as always, remember to look unto Jesus, live by faith. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.